Good evening, everyone. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Mike, and I'm from Buffalo, New York. Taryn, thank you so much for the kind introduction. Wow, let me just first start by right now, I am in the exact place I need to be right now. God has put me in this place. I honestly believe that. I am mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted right now. And it was through the help of other alcoholics that I got through today, and it's the blessing of this program. But where did this all start? Let's see. My sobriety date, let me get that out of the way, is September 12th, 2021. Not as much time as many of the speakers you've heard on here, but I got sober on Zoom. I got sober in 2021 during the pandemic. But let's go way back. I was born in 1976, and I was a problem from the get-go. I got caught on my mom's pelvic bone. I stopped breathing, and I had to be delivered emergency C-section by Dr. Putnam in Buffalo. So right from the get-go, I seemed to be a problem, and my mom said I was an easy child. I remember I was a very thin, child. And when I was 2 years old, I actually remember my father threw me in the pool to teach me to swim. And when I was 4 years old, I was on a diving board in Florida on vacation. And I can remember very briefly, or, just briefly, that the people were nervous because I was on the diving board ready to jump in the deep end. There were no floaties or anything like that. And in that same vacation, I got picked out of the crowd to be in the SeaWorld show with the killer whales and the dolphins. It was a special trip. Shortly after that, I ended up gaining weight. I was a heavy child. My weight was just on the back of my mind. And I used comedy through all my situations. I wanted to be the center of attention from the time I was little. And looking back in retrospect, I never saw certain behaviors. My father is a professional musician, and as along with a retired administrator from high school, and he was always gone on New Year's Eve. So we would go to dinner, and then he'd go out play every New Year's Eve. And I remember there was one instance I was 7 or 8 years old, and my mom thought it would be nice for me just to hold a bottle of champagne about 8 o'clock at night when we got home. Well, the last thing I remember, it was 10 o'clock. I was passed out. I had drank the whole bottle sip by sip. She thought it was cute. I guess it was, a little time for her to sleep. And also, I come from the time where the remedy for everything when you were a child was to put a little whiskey on your gums. So to be honest with you, these 4 years without a drop of alcohol in my system has been the longest time in my life without a drop of alcohol in my system since the time I was born. That's wild. Since I was young, I had 100% focus on whatever I was on. First, it was education. My father was very strict, heavy hand. I was raised old school Italian. Basically a submissive, my mom was a housewife her entire life, and I have one sister. It was tough, but I got punished for bad grades once. And from that point on, I don't think I got ever less than a B on my own fruition. I just got into education, put that in 100%. And then after that, around sixth, seventh grade, it was athletics. Always held the academics, but then it was athletics. First, it was baseball from the time of 5, but then it was concentrating on varsity and varsity football. Still holding the academics. And right around 18 years old, let me back that up. My first going out to bars was at 15 years old with my cousin. I could go to a bar, didn't even need an ID, they'd serve you a drink. It was in Lockport, New York. And my first regular drinking, getting my first drink with my friends was at 11. And periodically we'd go over a friend's house. I never had a sleepover. I wasn't allowed to do that. But, anytime you go over a house in the afternoon, because this was the time where you just come home and the street lights came on. So we'd sneak into the, liquor cabinet here and there, or tap a beer or whatever with that. And that continued on. And I was lucky. I had my dabbles with alcohol here and there. I showed up to this junior prom so drunk. My dad was an administrator at the high school, and the German teacher snuck me in the back. So I didn't get in trouble or get kicked out of sports or anything like that. Little privileges here and there. I always was able to talk my way out of things, or just finagle my way out of things. Just the easier, softer way. It was the way I learned. And then I graduated 7th in my class, varsity athlete, and then I go to college. Drinking through my career, my friends were always 10 years older than me. I was attracted to people who were older. I was always in accelerated classes. I don't know why, but I just had the ability not to retain information, but I could regurgitate it for short periods of time. So I was really good on tests. But ask me that information 6 months later, I couldn't tell you, and I get to college, and that's when it really took off. Just, I was more interested in partying. And I actually went to school from the time I was 5 years old. My father wanted to become a dentist, so he said, and he instead went to become a doctor of jazz education. So since the time I was 5, I was groomed to be in dental school. So that's what my whole career was against, going to dental school. But I go to college and I wanted to play some football. I got hurt, but my lab partner, you ready for this one, was a cheerleader. He was a male cheerleader. And yeah, he got me into it. I became one of the 8 male cheerleaders at UB. It was an amazing career for 4 years. Later became a mascot for the Buffalo Bandits NHL National Lacrosse team for 2 years. Just fun time of my life, but all the time drinking, getting progressively worse. I didn't realize it at the time. I would go to the bars with friends from college. I had a full-time job, always had cash in my pocket. They're ordering 25-cent draft beers. I wanted mixed drinks. I'm tipping people. They would have 2 or 3 beers. I'm having 6 to 10 drinks and driving home. Didn't see the pattern. And I didn't see that they slowly, got away from me. So now I'm just hanging with my core group of 5 friends who are 10 years older than me, and that was the way of life. My first job, main job, was traveling around with a golf ball company. We would go to different area golf courses and basically recycle the golf balls out of ponds. Sell them for range balls, sell them for resale, traveling all around the country. Became very close with the owner of that company and the other friends with that, and drinking became a way of life. And I realized all the jobs I had gotten up to that point, I didn't realize were tailored to drinking. My first job out of college was a salesman for the arena football team, the Buffalo Destroyers. I was walking into the office to deliver food because I was managing a pizzeria in Buffalo, and I was going to pick up some drugs from him. I was walking by and I overheard the sales director say, "Oh, another interview didn't show up." And I'm standing at his door. I said, "I just graduated college. How about you give me a shot?" And he said, "I don't know anything about you." I said, "I'm willing to take a third of the salary. Let me prove myself for 3 months, and then we can renegotiate." Well, like I do, I put my mind to it, I accelerate, and I excelled. And within a year, I was head of suite sales. I had people underneath me and going places. And then again, there's my partying on the weekends, all through the week. And it just kept getting worse, and I didn't see it. I absolutely couldn't see it. When it used to be, I would go on Friday, Saturdays, and then it would be Sunday afternoons for football games. Then all of a sudden it'd be Thursday nights and then Tuesday nights, and all, before you know it, it's 7 nights a week. And that was my life for the longest time. And I ran this life for a very long time. And on December 12th of 2012, I got my one and only DWI, aggravated DWI. I blew a .34. My airbags didn't go off. I had slid into a fire hydrant, totaled my truck. And when the fire department showed up, that's when I woke up behind the steering wheel. And the firefighters asked me to come to the truck. And obviously they could smell it and everything else. I was half out of it. And he said, you're lucky your airbag didn't go off, because the way your head was, you probably would have been killed. So the first thing I do when the police bring me into the car, because it's so cold, they go, "We're bringing you to the station." The first thing I start to do is try to save myself, rattling off names, the usual stuff, trying to save myself. And I go to the police station, and for the longest time, I told people that I slid on black ice to hit that fire hydrant. The fact of the matter is, I was with my friends at a bar across from the airport, and I don't remember them begging me not to drive, but they were. And I drove home, went past my house 2 blocks to go get food, and I passed out behind the wheel, and that's how I hit that fire hydrant. So I go to the police station, and he gives me 2 field sobriety tests, and I pass him. I pass him at .34, not realizing my problem. Then he puts me on the breathalyzer, and it keeps going up. And he starts yelling at me when it stops. He goes, do you realize how ridiculously drunk you are?" I didn't care. But do you know what I immediately went to? The victim. I immediately said I had a problem. Not because I believed it, not because I thought it, because that's what I heard. I knew that was a way out to say I had a problem and I'd get some help, you know, not to know that this was going to take 3 years to settle, but it was a blessing in disguise. You see, the very next day, my sister, who I'll tell you more about, we are very close. And I heard her deeper many, many times, but she's my biggest advocate to this day. And I'll get to her how she helped me today alone. She picked me up from the police station and she called, I didn't know this, her best friend, who was a lawyer, to come defend me. And he called me the next morning, and I didn't know he had almost 30 years in the program. And he took me to my very first AA meeting that night. So I'm in Buffalo in a church, and I walk into this meeting, and it's a speaker meeting. There's over 100 people. Now, let me tell you, at this point, I was 6'1", I'm 280 pounds, and I felt like I was getting dragged in against my will, kicking and screaming. But I'm going because I'm frightened. I didn't know anything about fear at this point. I didn't know anything about alcoholism at this point. And I go into this room, and there's over 100 people there, and my first instinct is my view of an alcoholic is that paper bag under a bridge, the downtrodden, and I'm seeing a mix of everything from suits, dresses to, dirty clothes, people who looks like they haven't bathed in months. And I didn't realize they all had a common theme of alcoholism. All I heard was this woman get up and just say the deepest, darkest things I've ever heard a human being say. And she talked a lot about intravenous drug use and scared the hell out of me. But I was scared to go in, to leave. I just wanted to follow right now, not because of taking suggestions, because I was scared to do anything else. So I just followed what I was told by my lawyer, and I got my sponsor. And at the same time, I'm going through outpatient for the first time, and with the local recovery agency called Horizon. And this went on for 3 years. I'm going in and out of meetings. I had my drawbacks. You see, I'm in this meeting and I'm looking around, and they started saying these sayings, live and let live, things of that nature. And I'm like, this is a cult. And then they said the Lord's Prayer at the end. I'm like, oh, this is a religious cult. I wanted nothing to do with it. That was my first downfall. And then I start, my sponsor, I sat down with him, who was studying to become a priest. Okay. He's studying to become a priest. And I fast forward right to the fourth step, because I'm not going to do things in order. I want to do things in my own will because it's my choice. Right. And in step 5, I got to tell him, my deepest, darkest secrets. I'm like, I can't tell this to a priest. So right there, I know I already can't be as honest in the program. So, but I go through the motions, I totally skip over step 2. God. Oh no, I denounce God at this point. I'm just at the beginning of my career at AA. Now, God, didn't even think about it. Just skip right over that. Step 3, look at step 4. I want nothing to do with it. So I slowly fizzled out. And thank God in the process, he got called to Pennsylvania to become actually preaching in the church. Phenomenal. But at that point, I'm not going to search for another sponsor. I'm going to do it on my own, because I got a little pink cloud, things are going a little well. I'm looking a little better. Life's getting a little in order. I'm going to do it on my own. I call that Mike's Anonymous. I was the only member. You know why? Because it didn't last. Yeah, I tried that. Time and time again, I tried that. You see, I was in outpatient so long that I actually figured out the actual hours is 81 hours that I had to stop drinking that I could pass a urine test. That's not alcoholic, is it? No, that's original. See, I'm a genius. That's what it is. It's my ego. Don't know anything about ego. Haven't heard about that yet. So little do I know that everything my sponsor's doing, he's going through the book. I'm like, this isn't me. I'm not an alcoholic. Little do I know all this is going to come to fruition when I go out for more research and development in the next almost decade. All right. And progressively, I'm like a Super Bowl. For the next 9 years, people, I'm in and out of AA, with a new excuse, more shame, not seeing the pattern that I get the goodness coming after doing the program a little while. And then for whatever reason, I fall off or whatever, life turns into a dumpster fire. But I'm not seeing this pattern. I'm not seeing that each time, like the book says, it's getting progressively worse. I'm not seeing this. Okay. I'm not seeing the loss of jobs, the loss of relationships, anything like that. I just keep going. And at this point, I got heavy into the white, very, very heavy. And it was not like I ever called for the drug. It was always alcohol first. Once I got alcohol, then I had to make the call for the party. Because why? Because I felt like I could drink endlessly on this, you know. And here I am in and out of AA. And my claim to fame in my 20s was I don't have a drinking problem. I got it figured out. Yeah, the only thing I didn't have figured out was how to live a life on a daily basis. I didn't know how to live at all. But I continue on the destruction in my life and my path, losing job after job, building up relationship and then destroying it. Just absolutely ruining my name and my reputation. And I still don't see the harm I'm doing little by little. And I start going into my first rehab. Had to be about I think it was 2015. I didn't look up the dates because, to be honest with you, I've been told that I just pray before I talk and let God's words come through me. So I didn't. I wrote just a few bullet points and that's it, and see what was going on. And I'll probably lose my thought here and there because that's one of the downfalls of my heavy drinking is I do lose my thought quite a bit. Thank you for that for my own doing. I actually forgot where I was, but oh, I go to the rehab for the first time. I go to a 30-day, and this is my first rehab ever. And I'm seeing people around me. I luckily they were in overflow. There were so many people there. I was in a private room with 5 people, and I'm still friends with one of those people to this day. One of the only ones I know out of the 100 that were in there that are sober. That just started my career. You see, after that, I went to my first bout at Freedom Village. It was a PTSD and a um, service member facility, only 35 guys on a campus of 4 buildings and over 500 different individuals there. So I'm on a campus of only 35. They allowed me in there. And I go in there not thinking I have a problem. I got this figured out. And I'm listening to these groups and stuff. This is a disease. I can't control it. The obsession. I didn't see it. I didn't feel that obsession yet. That was just my way of life. I thought it was normal to go out every day and have 8 to 10 drinks. I thought that was life to blow off everything. That was just the life I lived, you know. And I go through this one, thinking I know everything. I'm just going to skate through it, not listen to any suggestions. 8 days before I'm supposed to, oh, they graduate there, which I thought you did with AA. You graduate once you're done with the steps, right? 8 days before I went on an outing and I decided, I'm gonna have a couple sips of beer and a little, couple shots that my girlfriend at the time had under the seat in the vehicle. I got nailed and got kicked out. So that just, come out lies. I said, oh, I got out early release. I was doing so well. Of course, got to come out with a lie. And what I do, I'm on the gravy train again, going crazy within months. And that just started the streak of another 2 rehabs. And it was 7 and 8 I want to talk about. And this is the beginning of where it all started in 2021. It started my way thing. I went to Clearview for the first time. This is a facility out in Lewiston, New York. And it was 28 guys. And they keep talking about AA. And I'm still denouncing it, the whole thing. I'm like, it doesn't help me. It does not work. All the while, I'm not thinking about all the prescription I was on, the abuse, all the the psychiatry meds and all these different things. At one point, I was on 19 different medications because it was an excuse other than to say I was an alcoholic. But I wouldn't accept Alcoholics Anonymous. So I get done with the 30 days, and I don't know why, because I cussed everyone out on my way out the first time at Freedom Village, but they accepted me back. Accepted me back. And I'm there. And this is where it starts for me. This is where it gets a little emotional. It's unbelievable. Now I see how God works. I'm in rehab. Now I figure I got my alcoholic plan. I've heard it on this meeting. We call it alkalogic. Our thinking gets so delusional that we start believing our own crap. So my alkalogic, I'm like, all right, I'm going into this rehab. Could be up to 90 days. Who knows? I'll go to the gym. I'll exercise. I'll be good. It'll be good for time off. I'll really concentrate. And I get there. It's COVID. Everything's shut down. We can't even leave, basically our rooms and we can go eat. So in that process, I gained 48 pounds in that rehab. But here's where the miracle happened. I'm sitting in rehab and I get a phone call. I get a phone call because he knows it. I get a phone call from my friend Brent. Now, Brent was my drinking and drugging partner and also my boss for many, many years. I've known him for, I think it's 35 years now. I lost touch with Brent for about 2 to 3 years. And I had heard he got in a car accident, and that's all I had heard. And I get a call, and it was real simple. I didn't know what he's doing at the time. I was confused. I'm still out of my mind. And it was real simple. No preaching, no bragging. He just said, and I could tell his voice was different. His voice. Now, I haven't talked to him in 2 to 3 years. Couldn't remember the dates because my mind shot, but his voice was different. And all he said is, I'm in a program, I'm sober, and I pray to God. Well, stop the presses. It may sound insignificant, but that's the crack I needed in the door. You see, up until this point, and I just realized this, my AA up until this point was like a horse race. You see, I got that jockey on my back and I'm at the gate and I'm pulsing, I'm waiting for that gate to open. And I'm racing out that gate 100 miles an hour. And then what happens? Oh, it's a wet track. There's mud. It's raining. I got some excuse to leave. I got an injury. Time and time again, I'm back at the gate doing that race over and over again. But this time it was different. That phone call, the gate was open. I heard that word God. And all of a sudden, it was like that gate was shiny. And the jockey got off my back. And he grabbed the reins and started to lead me out of the gate slowly, step by step. And I'm looking in the grandstand, and there's only a couple in the grandstand there. All right, because I put myself in an isolation here. I've isolated myself from everyone from COVID. I sat in my room drinking, a handle a day of vodka, when I had to start off with a couple of beers. You see, I was the type of drunk that had to throw up. As my friend Bobby in New York says, the first thing I like to read in the morning is American Standard on the back of my toilet. I was a blackout drunk. That's who I was. That's what I became. See, I missed the day in elementary school when they look at this test you take and they select what kind of career you're going to go into. See, I never picked I was going to be an alcoholic, but that's what happened. You see, and he made that call, and all of a sudden, nobody's in the crowd. I'm being slowly walking out of that gate, and that's what I needed. You see, up until this point, like I told you before, not only did I announce AA, I denounced God. I was raised Roman Catholic. At an early age, and I didn't realize this until much later. My mother's father, my grandfather, passed away when I was 7 years old, and I remember going to his funeral vividly because I don't remember much from childhood. I don't remember much from from up until I was about 20 years old. I remember feeling nothing at his wake, no emotion, and I didn't understand why. And it was through intensive work during those 9 years with AA and a psychotherapist that I realized that when my sister and my mother used to go to church every Saturday with my grandmother down the street, my grandfather used to beat the hell out of me because he didn't like me and anything I said because of my father. He thought I was a direct representative of my father. Come to find out, I am. It's to me. But let's get back to this. So now I'm in the program and my mind's open. He's like, you need to get on this Zoom meeting. Now it's called the Men Who Trudge. I think it was Buffalo Men's at the time. I don't remember, like my mind shot. It's not about remembering the exact moments, about the experience. And he's like, they meet every day at 7:30, Sunday at 10 a.m. So I'm on there the next morning. And that was day one of over 4 years ago. I've missed very few of those meetings. See, something happened there. There's 35 to 40 core group members in there who go into literature, tell you their experiences, things that I've never experienced in AA that I wasn't open-minded to. See, the reason I was in rehab for the seventh and eighth time is my drinking led to 5 seizures, 2 grand mal seizures. One of those which my mother took me to the hospital after having a grand mal seizure, and she watched me fall out of bed and have another seizure, which she had shown me a picture of and video of about a year ago. Okay. I'm going to get back to the sobriety, but before I do that, I want to, no, actually, I'll get back to that in a minute. Okay. So I'm there, I'm on this meeting, and I'm hearing these things, and I'm terrified. And I'm just open-minded. I was at this point, I was in intensive care before this rehab, and the doctor said, "You drink, you're gonna die." And I went home. I was jaundice yellow from head to toe, my fingernails, my eyeballs bright yellow, and I laughed. You see, I told you before I was a blackout drunk. You see, I was drinking that handle of vodka a day, and see, I couldn't wait to pour it in a glass or put ice in it or put a mixer in it. I drank it right from the bottle because I couldn't wait. I needed that fix right then and there. You see, I'm an alcoholic. What I want, and I want it now. And for some reason, I got out of that hospital, and I don't know why. I got a glass and I put ice in it. I poured a drink in there, and I was sitting in my bathroom, and I'm holding the glass like this, and I'm looking in my mirror. I don't know why, and I started to cry. And I put it down, and that's the next day when I called Clearview. And I'm sorry I'm going to bounce back and forth, but there's a lot of stuff that happened. This program is a miracle. I'm a miracle. We're all miracles sitting here today, and I believe that, where I didn't believe that before. So I immediately, when I get out of rehab, I didn't realize the 12 step, the hand of AA reaching out. I immediately get a temporary sponsor, Mark. We had our differences, whatever. He was there immediately when I got out, just to teach me the ways. The next individual to approach me was the man who created the Men Who Trudge, Dr. Mark. He's not only a mentor, he's like a father figure to me. He's a spiritual advisor, and I'll get to him again when I go over the second step. You see, at that point, the jaundice yellow, crying in the mirror. I could say I was an alcoholic, but at this point, my life was unmanageable, and I was powerless, and I could finally admit it. Absolutely powerless. And I felt it. At that point, I was willing to take any suggestion, anyone was willing to tell me to make my life and situation better. See, I finally understood and saw the signs back in the day when I was shaking at the table the morning before work and I had a shot just so I could do paperwork. But I thought that was normal just to calm my nerves. I thought it was normal to stop at the gas station to get a Mike's Hard Lemonade to keep in my car, and then further on to keep a bottle under my seat to just drink from the bottle. I thought it was normal to pick up my niece and nephew from the airport when they're young children and have beer cans roll out from under the seat. I thought that was normal behavior. I didn't see what I didn't see. Everyone around me saw it. How many countless appointments I went to smelling like alcohol, breathing on, medical professionals smelling like alcohol, not seeing it, not seeing the destruction. But it's the program, realizing that it's the 6 inches between my ears. That, this whole time I didn't realize I was just looking for an answer to stop drinking. Just help me stop drinking. It wasn't an answer I needed. I needed a solution. And this is what finally I was willing to seek a solution. So we got it. I'm 100% in. I am powerless over this. I now realize that if a drop of alcohol hits my tongue, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't. And I'm fully vested in that today. So now let's go to step. Oh, let me get back to the second person. Down I go. Second person to come out of AA is my friend Marty. Marty became a paraplegic in 2013, falling from a building in a construction company. Marty picked me up at least 3 times a week to bring me to meetings in his Ford F-250 with a motorized seat, where this man would lift himself up and then reach his arm out of the pickup truck and haul this wheelchair into the back of the pickup truck. Okay? Selfless. I thought this man had years of sobriety when I met him. He had just a couple months more than me. And he had relapsed shortly thereafter, but he, just there. Now, something about Marty, selfless. You see, the Men Who Trudge, this group I have meeting 7 days a week with a different book topic. It's literature based, amazing. We have a picnic. So the second year we have a picnic, and Marty was into fancy cars. And the day after that picnic, he got into a car accident and totaled his car. He was all right, made it through. In July of 2023, the day after the picnic, Marty was driving and got hit by a 34-year-old drunk driver. Marty, to this day, is still in intensive care. My friend Brent, who called me to who got me to this program and mentioned it to me, went and visited him today, and we talked about it. And I'm hopefully going to visit him with my friend Jimmy on the program on Friday. You see, it's things in this program. It's gratitude. When your days get dark, these are people coming up to me in the beginning of the program, not knowing me from Adam, reaching their hand out to me to help me. Why? I don't understand it. Why are you doing this? What do you want in return? You see, because the way I was raised, you do something for somebody, you do something in return, and expect something. It's about me. No, he didn't want to expect something. He just wanted me to be better, to feel better, to have what we see around those, what they have, those who have had the spiritual enlightenment. So I'm on this second step now. I'm going through this, and I'm with Mark, and I still don't get God, and we fizzle out. So I need a new sponsor. Wow. I'm told to look for a sponsor that has similarities, qualities. My sponsor, Kevin, similar lifestyle, bar life, party lifestyle. He's got a beautiful family, 5 children. He agrees to be my sponsor. You know why I wanted this guy? Because he seemed a little cocky to me, like he had a little attitude, and I like that. I needed somebody, excuse me, to call me on my own bullshit because I was so used to believing it. I needed for somebody to go sit down with me in the book, word for word, and go through it, and that's what Kevin did. Kevin's my sponsor this day. My grand sponsor, Ryan, my great grand sponsor, Chuck. I know him all, communicate with him. It's a fantastic line. I'm very blessed. See, but Kevin took me through the book word for word, and things started to happen. He knew my hang up with the Catholic religion. See, to me, I never understood why I was there. I just went through the motions. I never took the time to understand why I was there. I just had this picture of the Hanna-Barbera cartoon god, the white glowing hair, flowing hair with the gold belt and the robe. I didn't know what it meant. To me, God was punishing. When I went to confession, I didn't know why I was doing it. I just felt like I did something wrong and I had to ask for forgiveness. I don't know forgiveness for what. I never understood it. And through my drinking career, I basically thought I was being punished by God on earth. This was my punishment. You see, and that's why I thought this program was religious. And thank God I was willing and open-minded to realize this is a spiritual program. You see, and I needed guidance. Wow, come to figure out guidance. I reach out to Dr. Mark. I'm not getting this God thing. I'm having a hard time. He's like, just like he told me with a sponsor, pray on it. And I'm still confused about praying on it. Just open your mind, pray on it. And I started to do the St. Francis prayer, and he recommended reading St. Francis prayer. And I would read it in different tones, different speeds. I would break down a line. Lord, make me a channel of that peace, and slow it down and think about it. Little by little, till I started to feel some kind of connection, something else outside myself. I hate to sound cheesy, but a warm, fuzzy feeling, if you will. Well, was that to come? Well, strangely enough, it kind of did. You see, for the first time in my life, my sponsor, and I will say this, made me get on my knees and hold his hands on the side of the Erie Canal in the public botanical park with people around and pray with him. And after a few seconds, that tenseness, the ambitions, they just go away. And I started concentrating. And I just remember the sunlight coming out behind a cloud, and I felt different. I'd never prayed with somebody like that before. For some reason, it just felt different. And when I was in Zoom trying to create this good orderly design, I call it God, my higher power. I feel comfortable with that. And I feel like it's watching over me at all times. See, I came from looking out the window at my rehab on that first day at Zoom, not knowing what a higher power is, just looking at leaves in the little woods area I could see, to go into the group, to finally creating this higher power, and then I'll skip to the fourth step, the list, the character defects. Ooh, boy. You see, I've done that a few times before. And you see, like before, I wasn't honest with myself. I couldn't be. I wasn't honest with anyone else. I'm just going to pick and choose what I want to do to my liking. Yeah, well, not this time. What was your part of it? What are you doing? Breaking it down by the columns. Fact inventory. I didn't realize that I did not have a sober relationship in my entire life up until 2 years ago. I'm 49 years old. That's insane to me. Then I go to the fifth step, and this, still cultivating God. I'm starting to feel a little bit, but I do my fifth step, and once again, what's an alcoholic going to do? At least for me, I try to keep a card in my back pocket, what I feel is to get a jail card. I don't want to tell them everything. And I've heard time and time before from those before me, if you don't tell everything like Book said, it ain't gonna work. And my sponsor cornered me on my porch. He's like, there's something else. What else is there? You're holding something back. I don't know what he saw, what he knew, but he was right. And I shared with him. And is embarrassed and just absolutely ashamed I was to tell him that. You know what? Something very similar he experienced. Crazy, right? All that fear, everything gone. You see, but it was that then. When I finished that fifth step and he asked me that, I prayed for an hour and a half. Could have been closer to 2 hours, which is probably the longest I've ever settled my mind in the history of my being. You see, because my mind doesn't really want to shut off. And at that point, I felt different. I felt finally a belonging, like I was part of the fellowship. This thing that I would stay away from, that I thought I'd lose my social life. I'd never have friends or anything like that. All of a sudden, it was slowly disappearing. Now, mind you, this is all within about the first year and 3 months. And I have that spiritual awakening. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was a process. And how did I know? How did I know it happened? Well, like I said again, everything's in retrospect. How did I know that obsession was gone? How did I first know I had that obsession? Once again, going back to that research and development through those 9 years, I didn't understand why I'd have that stomach pain that would force me to drink when I said I wasn't going to drink, or make me drink on a Monday when I said I wasn't going to drink. Or how did I end up at the liquor store? Or how did I end up totally destroyed here at this Christmas when I said I wasn't going to drink? Well, that all changed. That spiritual awakening happening. And I had a situation where I don't remember the exact situation. I just remember that it was something that 100% of the time I would have drank, and I would have drank to oblivion because that's all I knew. And I knew in retrospect, it was almost 72 hours later that I realized I didn't drink. And I was like, hey, you should have drank. Why didn't you drink? And then I realized it. You see, when I first got sober, I was afraid to walk down a beer aisle. I couldn't go in a supermarket down the streets. I couldn't see the colors or anything like that. I didn't want that attraction or anything like that. But I didn't have that pit in my stomach. I didn't have that urge to drink. The obsession was gone. And now the new problem arises. You don't want to drink. You still got to deal with your obsessions, your impulsiveness. You're wanting everything right now. And that's where the work begins, I think. You get done with those 12 steps, there's no graduation. I realize it's a lifelong program. And I get in the second year, and I had a very close friend, a friend, and an acquaintance all killed themselves by suicide in 6 weeks apart from each other in March, I believe it was, of 2023, 2 years sober. I didn't drink. Program working in my life. Then another miraculous thing happened. That happened 3 months into the program, people. Another person, a hand of AA, reaching out. I met a guy named Dave, and he knew I was looking for work, and he said, hey, the state's looking to hire. You ever been interested in the developmentally disabled? And at first it didn't click. You see, I didn't remember that back for 9 years, I used to volunteer with at that time, we call them the mentally handicapped. That's why I didn't click at that time. I used to go in their adult programs when I worked with the football team. We taught them a program to go on public buses, to go to the arena and purchase tickets and find their seats in the arena. And I fell in love with the people. I used to go to their dances, their magic shows, any of their get-togethers. And I forgot about that. And then he explained to me, he goes, you'd be working with the developmentally disabled. I said, I would absolutely be interested. And this guy at this point said, I will get you an application. I will give you a recommendation. He didn't know me. He went off the recommendation of another person who knew me. Amazing. The program working in my life. You see, I got that job. I celebrated my 3 year anniversary from that job in September. And just last Thursday, I found out that I got promotion and I'm moving up and moving locations in January. Program working in my life. I didn't see all this coming. You see, I didn't think there was any hope for me. I met that incomprehensible demoralization. I was there. I knew that pain. I knew I knew that will. I knew that point of I didn't care if I lived or died because I had no feeling. I was just numb. I didn't care. I never actually tried to kill myself, but I didn't care. Definitely, I used gracious amounts of stuff to try and do so. You see, and talking about that, that's why I go back to my friend who talked about that program, getting me in that program. See, he'll be celebrating his 6th anniversary on the 27th of this month. He called me after having that car accident. He can tell a story better than this, but he died at the scene of an accident and was brought back to life. And today he lives a sober life, an inspiration. You see, there's many inspirations in this program. You never know what you're going to hear and when you need to hear it. That's the amazing part. You know, so now I go into 6 and 7. I got to hurry up here. I'm running out of time. Got to go on 6 and 7. You know, prayer, getting closer, the meditation, you know, making a list of people we hurt in our amends. First thing Kevin told me to do, make your financial amends. Wow, for financial security, like the book says, for the first time I can actually follow through with financial obligations. My first one was to an ex. You see, if you saw close, you would see on my nose, I have a bite mark. I had 3 plastic surgeries. My ex-girlfriend's dog bit my nose off, basically. Why? I never told anyone this. I was holding a treat in my mouth drunk, and the dog bit my nose not knowing it. You see, I made up a story that I got bit helping a dog in a parking lot because I was embarrassed and I didn't want her dog to get put down because in Buffalo, if you say a dog bites you, 9 times out of 10, they put him down. And it was my fault. And I knew that. But I was blessed that night too because for some reason at ECMC, we have a wonderful trauma center here in Western New York. There was a plastic surgeon on call. They did 3 separate surgeries on that and were able to save my nose. So I just got a little cut. You see, I realized through those steps that God was working in my life the entire time. You see, after that DWI, I drank every day in my car. I was drunk all the time. I never killed anybody. I never died. God got me here, and I realize that today. So I made those amends. The close family friends, I don't say sorry to anymore. It doesn't mean anything in my eyes. I said it so much that it's just like null and void. I just got to do it by actions. See, actions by not asking for anything in return. That was new to me. I always thought I was, a helpful guy. But looking back on my sponsor, I always had a hidden agenda. I had hidden motives. I always wanted something, whether it be money, recognition, drugs, who knows, whatever it may be, you know. But at that delusional life, I wanted to get away from. In the maintenance steps, step 12, reach out to another alcoholic, practice his principles in all our affairs. I try to live in the solution today because that's the suggestions that I'm around. See, I no longer seek out alcohol and drugs. I seek out wisdom from the program and I seek out God. I seek out direction from God. That's totally opposite of what I've been, who I was. See, what this program did simply was change my perspective. It's not always the correct perspective. See, but I have that 10th step to recount my day, to see where I did wrong. Do I need to make amends immediately? And that's my go-to. My sponsor had me send daily gratitude lists, nightly lists, so helpful. And I look back, everything today is because of AA 4 years ago, because I was finally beaten up enough. I've been through enough that it was either die, because I'd already been through jails and institutions. Death was next, knocking on my door. And that door opened. And now I have amazing relationships. You see, I'm in my 4th year. I have my friend Jimmy, a loving relationship that we went to go meet that guy on your screen right there, that Dan Cotter from Leesburg, Virginia. I go to meet him. He said, "Hey, why don't you come visit?" I would never follow through anything in the past. I said, "Absolutely, I'll come down." 2 weeks later, Jimmy and I come visit him in Virginia. What an amazing thing. Turns out he knows one of the famous race car drivers from my hometown in New York. The small world. What I look for is the men in my group. And it's not always about quantity, I've learned. It's about quality. I've seen, things I don't like, and things I got to stay away from. I'm seeking guys and men and women because I have a one special woman on here who was very extremely helpful to me today, and she knows who she is. She does know who she is. She saved me from a lot of tough moments today. She's a sweetheart. But there's people in my life today. You see, they're there to help me. I used to be afraid to pick up that phone, that 500-pound phone, and that's a lifesaver. And I thought back 2 years ago, the major scare I had was in November. I was at a fundraiser and they had a Buffalo Bills game on. I just went into the bar area just to watch the game, not even thinking. And somebody was serving up shots and I almost grabbed one. And I almost was afraid to pick up that phone. And I did. And it was that moment on that I knew that was my saving grace. It's a we program. And I need those suggestions and that help from other alcoholics because I can't do it alone. And this is now my blueprint for life. See, the book gives us what to do in the morning. You know, we wake up, say our prayers, we meditate, pray for guidance, in our thinking and our action. Ask God what we can do today to help somebody else, keep us away from fear and dishonesty. And then it's told what to do at the end of the day. If we're resentful, if we're dishonest, we need to make apologies and pray. You see, I can't do it alone. I've already tried it alone. I've tried it at my own choices, my own decisions, and they don't work. But it works when we work as a group. It's amazing what we can do as a group and the power of the group. Because I tell you, I've walked in 1,000 churches in my life and never felt the feeling, the power that I feel when I walk into the room of AA. Because I honestly feel in my life that it's the word of God coming out of the mouths of others around me at the table. And those words keep me sober for today because yesterday's gone and tomorrow's not promised. And all we have is today. My name is Mike B. I'm an alcoholic from Buffalo, New York. Thank you for letting me share and help you. Thank you for helping me stay sober today. I love you all.